Going back to the COVID narrative, the conspiracy theorists are about 5-0. That's what the joke I've been saying. And here's one of them. This is the experts debunk fringe theory linking China's coronavirus to weapons research. It's in the Washington Post. In conversations with the Washington Post, experts reject the idea that the virus could be man-made. Based on the virus genome and the properties, there is no indication whatsoever that it was engineered virus, said Richard Abraham, a professor of chemical biology at Rutgers University, and a guy who should be embarrassed now. There's NPR. Virus research casts doubt on theory of coronavirus lab accident. The bottom line there says virus researchers say there is virtually no chance that the new coronavirus was released as a result of a laboratory accident in China or anywhere else. That's NPR. Remember when they were saying that in April 23rd of 2020? They already knew. NPR knew. Somehow they all got it wrong together. Here's another one. Here's Snopes. Fact checkers got it wrong. Here's why scientists think the coronavirus wasn't made in a lab. The vast majority of scientists who have studied the virus agree that it evolved naturally and crossed into humans from an animal species, most likely a bat. July 2020. Really, Snopes? Now you know why you don't go to Snopes. You don't go to Washington Post. You can't trust any of them because they're all owned by Big Pharma. Here's another one. Media Matters. Joe Rogan spreads unfounded conspiracy theory that COVID-19 started in a lab. Now, who should be embarrassed? Joe Rogan or Media Matters? Media Matters. But they won't, and they'll never apologize. And why do I bring this up? Professor Jeffrey Sachs. He was the chair, University of and Columbia University. He was the chair of the Lancet COVID-19 Commission. And he's also the guy we featured on the show because he's told the truth about American imperialism and the real cause of the war in Syria. So that's why that guy's famous on this show. And now let's find out why he's going to be famous to a lot of other shows. Here we go. Ready? He's talking about the virus, the coronavirus, and he's the chairman of the Lancet study of the COVID-19. And here's what he has to say about the origin. Now, you remember Joe Rogan's a maniac and you're a mental person and you would be kicked off Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if you said the virus came from a lab. Why? Because Dr. Fauci didn't want you to know he was funding it. And here it is.
I'll add one provocative statement. We could take it up later. It may shock you or not shock you, or you may say, I already know that, Professor Sachs. But I chaired a commission for the Lancet for 2 years on COVID. I'm pretty convinced it came out of U.S. Lab Biotechnology, not out of nature.
I'm going to play it again.
I'll add one provocative statement. We could take it up later. It may shock you or not shock you, or you may say, I already know that, Professor Sachs. But I chaired a commission for the Lancet for 2 years on COVID. I'm pretty convinced it came out of U.S. Lab Biotechnology, not out of nature. Just to mention, after 2 years of intensive work on this. So it's a blunder, in my view, of biotech, not an accident of a natural spillover. We don't know for sure, I should be absolutely clear. But there's enough evidence that it should be looked into, and it's not being investigated. Not in the United States, not anywhere. And I think for real reasons, that they don't want to look underneath the rug.
They're not looking into it. Isn't that interesting? Now, again, I'm a bad person for asking these questions or even talking about COVID that goes against anything the government or Big Pharma says. That's what all my comedian friends in Hollywood say now, that you're a dummy if you do your own research or if you look into anything. You're a dummy. You're a Trumper. Is that guy a Trumper? So he's saying it's most likely they invented this pandemic, was invented by U.S. Lab Biotechnology. Now, some people are saying he said it came from a U.S. lab. But I think that's not what he's saying. He's saying it came from U.S. Lab Technology. And why is that? So why would no one's looking into it? Isn't that interesting? They're not going to release the Pfizer trial data for 75 years, and no one's looking into the origin of the virus, even though they'd kick you off Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if you said it came from a lab. And Media Matters would say you're a conspiracy theorist. So would the Washington Post. And Snopes, which you know now are garbage. Fact-checking organizations don't check facts. They repeat propaganda from the people who fund them. Snopes is not a fact-checking organization. PolitiFact is not a fact-checking organization. FactCheck.org, not a fact-checking organization. They are funded by the people they're supposed to be fact-checking. And why is this interesting? Because Dr. Fauci lied about this. He lied about funding this. So there's going to be someone who's responsible for funding the research that gave us this pandemic that they say killed millions of people. Which is why Dr. Fauci lied and said that it wasn't from a lab when he knew there was a strong possibility. The emails showed he knew that it was a possibility, and they immediately had to discredit anybody who had a different idea. That's what they do. They discredit you. And here he is being asked about it.
That the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund
So that's a lie. So that's a lie to Congress, and that's why Dr. Fauci should be in jail, because he lied to Congress, not once, but several times about this very issue. And you know how I know he's lying? Because did you hear what he just said? Listen to what he says.
The NIH has not ever
does not
now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund?
So that was him in front of Congress lying. Here they are in a major shift. The NIH admits that they were funding virus research in Wuhan. He was asked about it again. Here we go.
For which there was supposed to be a federal pause. Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Microphone.
Your microphone.
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement.
Still not retracting
This
it.
paper that you were referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function.
So he's again lying. He's saying the people that I hire and fire at my organization, they agree with me. That's what he's trying to say. Up and down the chain? You mean people you hire and fire agree with you? The NIH letter, coming after months of congressional demands for more information, underscored that America's premier science institute has been less than forthcoming about risky research it funded and failed to properly monitor. Gilles de Montfort on New York News, I don't know how you say his last name, a New Zealand data scientist in New Zealand, told Vanity Fair, I cannot be sure that COVID-19 originated from a research-related accident or infection from a sampling trip, but I am 100% sure there was a massive cover-up. So that's why this is interesting. That's why it's important that that guy, Jeffrey Sachs, came out and said that he's pretty sure it came from U.S. It was invented, the coronavirus, COVID-19. Remember when it used to make Stephen Colbert shit his pants when someone would say this was a thing, maybe? Remember this? Remember Stephen Colbert calls Jon Stewart a conspiracy theorist. Watch this.
I honestly mean this. I think we owe a great debt of gratitude to science. Science has in many ways helped ease the suffering of this pandemic, which was more than likely caused by science.
Pussy. Pussy.
And that's
company
kind
man,
of
company man, company man,
no.
company man.
Listen.
It's coffee. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you.
I'm
So
all
what
for
do you?
spit takes,
But
but-
what do you mean by? Do you mean like
Well, so
this?
here's
Perhaps there's a chance that this was created in a lab. There's an investigation.
A chance.
Well, but
oh my
if there was
God.
evidence, I'd love to hear it. I
There's
just don't know.
a novel respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do we do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan novel respiratory coronavirus lab. The disease is the same name as the lab. That's just a little too weird, don't you think? And then they ask the scientists, they're like, how did this, so wait a minute, you work at the Wuhan respiratory coronavirus lab. How did this happen? And they're like, a pangolin kissed a turtle. And you're like, no, the name of your lab, if you look at the name, let me see your business card. Show me your business card. Oh, I work at the coronavirus lab in Wuhan. Oh, because there's a coronavirus loose in Wuhan. How did that happen? Maybe a bat flew into the cloaca of a turkey and then it sneezed into my chili and now we all have coronavirus. Like, come on.
Wait a second.
What about this? What about this? Listen to this.
Wait a second.
All right.
John.
Oh my God. There's been an outbreak of chocolatey goodness near Hershey, Pennsylvania. What do you think happened? Like, oh, I don't know. Maybe a steam shovel mated with a cocoa bean. Or it's the chocolate factory. Maybe that's it.
That could be.
Company man. Watch, he won't stop.
That could
By
be.
the way, I gave them all tuberculosis.
Yes. That could very well be, and Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins and NIH have said, like, it should definitely be investigated.
Don't stop with the logic and people and things. The name of the disease.
Wait a second.
Is on the building.
Wait a second. But it could be possible. You could be right. It could be possible that they have the lab in Wuhan to study the novel coronavirus diseases because in Wuhan there are a lot of novel coronavirus diseases because of the bat population there.
I understand.
It's like the saying,
it's
like,
a
wait a
local
second.
specialty, and it's the only place to find bats. You won't find bats
but it's
anywhere
like
else.
saying,
oh,
why?
wait, Austin, Texas has thousands of them that fly out of a cave every night. Every night at dusk. Is there a coronavirus, an Austin coronavirus? No, it doesn't seem to be an Austin coronavirus. The only coronavirus we have is in Wuhan.
Yes.
Where they have a lab called, what's the lab called again, Stephen?
The Wuhan Novel Coronavirus Lab.
I believe that's the case.
And
now,
how long have you worked for Senator Ron Johnson?
Let me tell you something. About Ron Johnson.
And that's Stephen Colbert being a company man. And that's Stephen Colbert not having half the balls that Jon Stewart has. That's Stephen Colbert kneecapping a brilliant... He's been trying to stop this comedy bit since he started it. And he's 100... Of course, he's 100% right.
This is not a conspiracy. Here's the thing about science.
You could be right.
You could be right. But this is the problem with science. Science is incredible, but they don't know when to stop, and nobody in the room with those cats ever goes, yeah, I don't know if we should do that. Like, they're... A few years back,
I agree with you. If science can do it, they will do it.
They will do it. They're like, oh, curiosity killed the cat. Oh, okay, well, let's kill 10,000 cats to find out why. And you're like, that's what science does. They push things. They do the thing like, okay, listen to this. So a few years back...
You know we stopped filming a long time ago.
I understand that. Can I tell you something? This is what happens. I've been alone for so long. And when I realized that the laboratory was having the same name, first name and last name, of the evil that had been plaguing us, I thought to myself, that up.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why that's important. And that's why I wish Jon Stewart was still around in a way that he could do stuff like that. He has a show now on Apple or whatever. It's not as good as he is, put it that way. Anyway, there you go. And isn't it funny how Fauci can make the... Isn't it funny how Fauci says it didn't happen, and then every news organization then just repeats what Fauci and Collins said, and then they discredit anybody who just doesn't believe them? Isn't that something? I still can't get over the shame I feel about my fellow comedians repeating propaganda from Big Pharma uncritically, and not only doing that, but shitting on people who were questioning authority. That's what you're supposed to do as a comedian. Repeating propaganda from Big Pharma uncritically is not doing comedy. It's doing propaganda. And shame on you. Shame on you for going on stage, making fun of people for doing their own research. How dare you? You're the opposite of a comedian when you do that. We're going to Chicago, Sacramento, San Diego, Bakersfield. See you there. Go to JimmyDoreComedy.com for a link for all our tickets.